Hi, it's me, the guy who got his hair cut too short. I look like J. Jonah Jameson.
I trust my barber.
Well, I don't anymore. Riley Gaines is a collegiate swimmer turned conservative political activist who became radicalized after competing in a meet against a trans swimmer, Lia Lia Thomas. Lia Thompson is the mom from Back to the Future. Sorry. Now you may be thinking, oh, for the experience to have affected her so much that she became one of the biggest advocates against trans women competing in sports, she must have come in at a distant second, believing that if only Lia Thompson weren't allowed to participate, she'd have gotten the gold. But no. They both tied for 5th place, and the 4 swimmers that beat them were all cisgendered women. But since they only had 1 trophy on hand, Thompson was asked to hold it in the photo while Gaines had to wait for hers in the mail, and instead hold an identically sized 6th place trophy in the photo. I mean, just look at it. You can see the undeniable injustice on display here. Now, I know that the issue of trans women in women's sports is one that people are very passionate about, and that in simply criticizing some of the discourse around it, people are going to accuse me of being in support of men beating the shit out of women in boxing matches, only to flash them in the locker room minutes later. Neither of which are things I would be okay with if they were happening. I honestly don't have a firm stance on whether trans women should be allowed to compete freely against cis women in sports. Though I do actually remember Neil deGrasse Tyson, of all people, proposing a solution that sounded promising to me.
And I've tried to think of what the future of sports would be in the world of a gender spectrum. And it may be, you don't specify whether it's a male or female sport. You just take measurements of what your hormonal balances are. And so you compete based on your hormones. I mean, this is thought I had. I don't know.
I also wish this was an issue that could be debated in a more civil manner, but unfortunately, the majority of the most vocal advocates against it, like Riley Gaines, also just blanket hate trans people and don't think they should be allowed to exist openly.
And look, that's not to say that people who identify as trans are evil. I don't necessarily think that. But what is evil is deception.
Yeah.
Manipulation is evil. Temptation is evil. Lying and affirming delusions, that's evil. And that's exactly how Satan works and how he operates, is in the darkness. But now a lot of it is coming to light. Again, thanks to people like Elon Musk.
They're using the smokescreen of concern about justice in women's sports, but what they really want is to openly hate and vilify trans people. So as a result, incidents like this one are talked about way more often than they're actually happening. And it's gotten to the point that cisgendered athletes like Imane Khelif are being harassed by people like Riley Gaines, incorrectly accusing them of being trans. But I thought the reason you made such a big stink in the first place was to protect female athletes. Also, side note, before starting this video, I assumed Riley Gaines was like 35. She's not even a year older than me. Why are all these MAGA kids obsessed with acting so much older than they actually are? Now, JC Film Studios is a production company responsible for 2 films that I've talked about before on this channel. A Taste of Praise, which defended the right of Christians to refuse service to gay people.
It's just, I don't do custom cakes for same-sex couples. Explain yourself. It's just an agreement that I made with God.
And Cancel Me Not, which was about how cancel culture's gone too far and universities are brainwashing kids into hating God.
This university will teach you strong opinions that I like to call truths. And these truths have not been polluted by religion.
I think it's pretty clear what the JC in their name stands for. Judgy cunts. But they didn't stop there, as their 2024 release, And God Made Man, which stars a lot of the same actors as the previous 2, tackles the controversial subject of trans women in sports. And again, I know that just by talking about this movie, I'm guaranteeing a certain amount of very angry comments. But before you post yours, keep in mind that I'm not really trying to convince you of anything in regards to trans women in sports specifically. Just that trans people should be allowed to exist freely without being instantly vilified. And really, I just think this is a stupid thing to make a movie about, and I want to make fun of it for the entertainment of people who already agree with me, and that's my right. So the movie begins and we're introduced to Steve, whose daughter Lindsay, is the star of her high school swim team. Now, to be clear, this movie never claims to be based on the true story of Riley Gaines, but I doubt it's a coincidence that it's about swimming. He takes her to an important meet where first place would qualify her for regionals, where college scouts go. Before the meet, the coach leads the girls in prayer.
Lord, please keep these girls safe. Bless them as they strive to honor you in everything they do. Amen.
Is he allowed to do that considering this is the school swim team? Maybe if it's like a private Christian school, but later in the movie, the coach complains about having too many openly queer students, so I doubt that. The meet starts and Lindsay unexpectedly comes in second place, losing to a mysterious girl much taller than her.
What's that girl?
Which again, is not what happened to Riley Gaines. She tied for 5th place with a trans opponent. Also, you know how J.K. Rowling hates trans women? I wonder if the second task in Harry Potter and the Goblet of Fire, where Harry encounters a bunch of scary mer people while swimming in the lake, was meant to be an allegory for competing in a swimming competition against trans women. I'm gonna be honest, I don't think I could ever bring myself to hate that movie. Barty Crouch!
Junior.
After the match, an upset Steve learns from Lindsay's coach that the swimmer she lost to is trans.
He's transgender.
He's what?
He is a she, and they're allowed to compete.
So what you're telling me is, my daughter's not going to regionals because some boy put on a one-piece.
But the coach says the trans girl Alex was allowed to compete, and there's nothing they can do about it, to Steve's disappointment. Later at home, Lindsay is confused.
What should we do?
Trans people are an affront to God.
You're telling me.
Her dad has something to show her on the computer.
Here, look what I found.
Stupid dog's chasing his own leash. No, he's discovered that trans women competing in women's sports has already been made illegal in 10 states and wants to sue the swimmer Lindsay lost to make it illegal where they are, California.
You missed out on an opportunity today, Lindsay. A college opportunity. This transgender is getting out of hand.
So I'm not trans, but if I were, I would make this joke.
This transgender is getting out of hand.
My Chili's waitress to her manager after I have my 4th Alphaba margarita.
It's that simple, too. God made man, God made woman.
I think it's a lot more complicated than that.
No, it's not.
Hey, what's with the daughter being so open-minded, huh? She's supposed to make a whole career out of hating trans people after this. Also, crazy that the movie wants us to disagree with the character being so open-minded here. So Steve takes the case to a bunch of lawyers, but they're all just a bunch of vaccinated NPC beta sheep who shut him down.
Say I represent you and your daughter. We'd lose, and along the journey, you, me, your daughter, and my law firm would be penalized.
So you're scared.
Mr. McCabe, are you living in the same America I'm living in?
Evidently not.
And one lawyer he doesn't even bother with after he sees they have a pride flag on their desk. Cause he needs a lawyer who hates the queers. Lost, Steve goes to church where he vents to a soul-patched pastor.
I believe that the people pushing this agenda are trying really hard to create confusion. Every other day they come up with a new gender.
Wait, every other day we come up with a new gender? Like Monday we did attack helicopter, then Tuesday we have the day off, then Wednesday we created femboys. Anyway, the patchster gives Steve the number of an attorney he thinks might be able to help. And he goes to meet this guy, Caleb, who I think is supposed to be like a My Cousin Vinny-esque character. Like a quirky guy who's a bit of a mess and says out-of-pocket things at times.
She lost a race or something, one of those guys? Girls. Wait. Whatever.
Yeah.
Smoked her good?
But might have just the skill set needed to save the day. Caleb explains that trans kids are on the rise because children are being indoctrinated in school.
This mom sent me a pamphlet the other day called The Genderbread Person. Her 8-year-old brought it home from school. genderbread person. This says gender is not just boy or girl. In many cases, it's both, or a little bit of this, a dash of that. Do you ever feel like a woman? Never. Me neither.
Because that's a big enough sample size to understand all of humanity.
But when an 8-year-old girl brings this home, hears that she's a bit of this and a dash of that, well, I know. That's how we got here.
So, a concept that these people just can't seem to grasp is that if the only thing keeping a child from identifying as trans is them simply knowing that trans people exist, then they were already trans. So Caleb agrees to take the case, and on the way out, after circling Caleb's name, Steve keeps his mouth open after removing the pen cap from it. After Caleb makes a request for Lindsay's records, Lindsay and her coach are questioned by an attorney from the Board of Education. And upon discovering her dad's attempting a lawsuit, the attorney claims it holds no weight, which Lindsay's coach takes issue with.
School has a strict policy to support inclusion. Provide resources for every student, no matter what their gender.
That's got to be getting harder now. There's over 100 genders. Have you walked these halls? This is the new thing. It's popular. Boys dressing like girls, girls dressing like boys. I have a fictional movie character in my 11th grade gym class, and I have to treat her that way.
Biden's America, where you'll be executed by firing squad for not affirming your student's identity of Kit Fisto from Star Wars Attack of the Clones. I'm sorry to people with this accent, I know y'all don't think this way. Weird how you rarely hear like a stereotypical California dialect used to make fun of liberals. Dude, I identify as an attack helicopter. I want AOC to give me a COVID vaccine up my ass. Meanwhile, Steve and Caleb get to work preparing for their first appearance in court, and it looks to be some real hard-hitting research they're compiling. Is it fair for men to compete in women's sports? No. Lindsay comes in and explains how her opponent was nice to her after the race.
After the race at the pizza thing, she thanked me for being kind to her. She was so nice.
Well, I'm sure he was.
Whoa, sorry, accidentally used someone's preferred pronouns there. The court day finally arrives and some trans activists make an appearance.
Order, order, order! I want everyone removed from the chamber. Everyone from the gallery out.
Crazy liberals always protesting. Can't they just fight injustice in a rational way, like by making terrible movies? Also, you know that was the same exact pride flag that was on the attorney's desk earlier, and after filming they probably burned it. Also, the judge here is played by everyone's favorite Superman actor turned actual ICE agent, Dean Cain. Imagine having played Superman and then being in And God Made Man. I almost feel bad. Now, one thing I want to give this movie, I don't want to say credit for, but at least acknowledge, is that they don't portray the trans swimmer Alex as really a cisgendered man who's deliberately pretending to be trans to steal Lindsay's scholarship opportunities. In fact, after both of their attorneys give opening arguments, the girls have a moment in the hall.
Can I ask you something? And whatever you say, I'm gonna accept it. Are you a girl or a boy?
I'm a girl. I've always felt that way.
And I love how when they come back into the courtroom together, Steve gives Lindsay a look like, what the hell were you talking to that freak for? Just when it seems Judge Cain isn't going to push the case to trial, Caleb brings up that God was mentioned on the ticket to the swim meet.
Clearly on the back, this ticket states no refunds except for acts of God. I say that we look at what God says about gender and the difference between man and woman.
And the judge is actually convinced by this and pushes the case to trial.
It's creative. I'm gonna allow it. Let's pick a trial date.
So I'm not a lawyer, I don't know, but why would the ticket mentioning God mean what the Judeo-Christian God specifically has to say about gender is relevant in the case? Couldn't you just as easily use that as an excuse to bring up the Mesopotamian deity Ishtar, who was depicted as having a fluid gender? It's not just that these people clearly want America to be a Christian theocracy, they act as if it already is one. The day of the trial arrives, and Caleb gives his opening statement.
Now, the defense is going to put up all these experts, and they're going to use words like biphobia, non-binary, gender fluid, gender dysphoria, even gender non-conforming. And then now this is the same rhetoric that was used to create, 187 new genders that miraculously appeared in the vocabulary.
So the how many genders are there debate is one that I'm really tired of because it's a question that has an answer. The answer is just not a number. From my admittedly limited cisgendered understanding, it's not that there's a specific number of genders, it's that it's a spectrum. Similar to how you can't really answer how many different types of autism or political ideologies there are. It's a spectrum that everybody falls at a slightly different place on, whether they like it or not. Now, yes, this hasn't always been the definition of the word gender, but by previous definitions of the word planet, the sun and the moon qualified as planets. Definitions always have and always will change. And if you don't completely understand someone else's gender identity, that's fine. I don't think anyone expects that of you. They just prefer you don't go into cardiac arrest upon learning they have different pronouns than you'd expect. I know I said this video wasn't for people who disagree with me, but now I'm kind of speaking as if it is. I don't know what I'm doing ever.
So God created humankind in his image, the image of God. He created them male and female. He created them. That's it. And he created them different. Now, folks, it's a denial of science and shows complete disregard for fairness to say that a male identifying as a female is the same as a biological female. Now, that's just common sense.
The audacity to claim both that something contradicts the biblical definition of gender and that it's a denial of science. Because you know what else I'm pretty sure isn't scientifically accurate? How about the talking serpent from that same book in the Bible that the definition of gender is provided? At the end of the trial's first day, Alex gives Lindsay her number, so that night the girls can vent to each other about the experience. Then, after hanging up, Alex seems to have some demons. Which I think is meant to perpetuate the belief that all trans people think they're trans because they're all struggling mentally. And like, yeah, I'm sure a lot of them are struggling mentally now. That tends to happen when half the country vilifies you for no reason. Also, I'm sure they'd struggle even more if they had to repress their gender identity like these people want them to do. So in a montage, Caleb and Alex's lawyer both speak to a bunch of witnesses. Then later at home, Steve notices Lindsay is in distress.
You okay?
No?
Joe left Impractical Jokers.
Everyone at school hates me. The news is saying terrible things about me and you. Now I have 271 emails saying that I should just kill myself.
Yeah, whereas I'm sure everyone is 100% in support of the trans girl. Trans people in the public eye never get death threats or terrible movies made about them. With more witnesses, the judge and jury seem to be leaning in Caleb's favor, so Alex's lawyer, Janet, stops into a woke church to meet with a progressive pastor played by Kevin Sorbo.
Ms. Peters.
Hi, please call me Janet.
Oh, it's a pleasure. It's nice to meet you in person.
Thank you, you too.
An actor that's actually had a pretty similar career to Dean Cain, having once portrayed Hercules in a pretty popular TV show, only to now be featured in films like this and God's Not Dead. But Reverend Sorbo explains his church's mission.
Spun off the Methodists back in the 60s and 70s when one of our pastors realized that the so-called Christian values weren't really including marginalized people. We adopted a doctrine that would embrace the gay and lesbian parishioners of faith, and then we have become the forefront on queer theology. We have a saying, For every sinner they cast out, we cast our net to keep them in faith.
And the movie wants us to view this guy's mission of keeping his church's doors open to queer people as wrong. How do these people never realize how much their beliefs make them sound like X-Men villains? The woke reverend agrees to testify in court, and it's immediately clear he's bad news, as not only is he wearing a pride pin, but he refuses to swear on the Bible.
I'm taking that as a no.
Yes, Your Honor, that is a no to following the rules of a system that claims equal justice under the law, and instead they're following a man that probably has a painting of the Last Supper represented by 12 white apostles.
That's quite enough.
And again, he makes some arguments that, despite the movie trying to frame them as bad, sound pretty good to me.
And yet the Bible calls it a sin.
So is working on Sundays, and I know tattoos outlawed in the Bible, eating bats, sharing a chair with a menstruating woman.
Okay, thank you.
But after the patch store testifies, affirming the biblical definition of gender,
Or something that someone picks and identifies as. See, gender is designed and determined at conception. The Bible says God formed our inward parts. We are fearfully and wonderfully made.
Kane ultimately rules in Lindsay's favor, paving the way for a state ban of trans women in women's sports. And months later, Lindsay gets a call from the swim coach at her dream school.
Yes, yes, I'd love to come up for a visit. Okay.
6-year-old me when they added yellow puffles to Club Penguin. So that was And God Made Man. So obviously that was a shitty movie, but the worst part about it is that it can't recognize that the overwhelming majority of trans women aren't identifying as such just to achieve their true desire of competing in women's sports or being in women's restrooms. They just want to present the way they feel most themselves without being vilified. And us arguing over the right of trans people to exist is exactly what the elite want us to be doing to prevent us from achieving class solidarity.